Hello, so today we are doing lesson 8 on page 845, which is chapter 11, lesson 8. And we're learning how to display measurement data on a line plot. So this is a really fun lesson. I think you'll enjoy it today. So let's just get started. We're looking at example 1. It says 6 friends shared several foot-long submarine sandwiches. The table shows the amount each friend ate. Make a line plot of the lengths in the table. So let me show you the page here. It's kind of, I have to zoom in pretty far with the teacher book is small. But anyway, so here is the table that I'm talking about. And you can see that each of the friends ate part of a sandwich. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/2, 1/4, 1/4 is what all the friends ate. So let's go ahead and look at this. So first we're going to count the number of times each fraction appears, okay? So the fraction 1/4 appears 2 times, okay? The fraction 1/3 appears 3 times, if you count them, there are 3 there. And the fraction 1/2 appears 1 time. Okay, so write that down in your book. But so you're looking at the friends. So how many total friends are there? So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you look at the table, you can count there are 6 fractions inside that table. So that means there are 6 friends. And those are the sizes that each of them ate. So what you do when you're creating this line plot, let me erase this, is you're going to go ahead and place these on the plot. First, though, I need to make a spot for 0. Over here is 1. Okay, that means right in between the 2 is going to be half. About right here would be 1/4, and about right here would be 1/3. Okay, so 1/3 because 1, 2, 3/3, right? 1/2 and 1/4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those are the places where it would be on the number line. And then what we do is we just place an X for each one. So we look at the table. The first one says 1/3, so we go 1/3. The next one says 1/3, so we place an X for that 1/3. The next one says 1/3 again. On the next line, the first one is 1/2. The next one is 1/4. And the next one is 1/4. So what I've done is I've placed an X for every single one of those fractions. Okay? So if you count up the X's, the number of X's is the same as the number of people. Each one of these X represents one of the people who ate the sandwich. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 of them. Okay, so the total number of X's is how many units we have. And then we go ahead and we put an X for each one on top of another on the line plot. So this is how we would write this data into a line plot. The last thing you do is add a title to it. So I'm going to give this line plot a title. I'm going to call it Sandwich Lengths. And it's sandwich lengths in feet. Okay, so you give it a title. So this is what we're doing. We're making line plots with data, and then we're labeling the line plot and putting it out like this so that we can interpret the data. Now, one of the things that we're going to be doing with this information is finding our fair share. Okay, so we call this the fair share. And this is an important concept, okay? What fair share is, it's the amount each friend would receive if the sandwiches were divided equally, okay? They did not all eat equal amounts. Somebody had 1/2 of a foot, but some people only had 1/4 of a foot, right? So they did not each get a fair share. So that's what fair share is when we're talking about line plots and data, is we're looking for the amount each friend would get if the sandwiches were divided equally. So that's what we figure out. So how to do it? We just add the measurements together to find the whole number of sandwiches that we had. And then we divide the whole by the number of measurements. So what that means is we're going to add together each of these measurements and figure out how much total there was for sandwiches. The total lengths in foot, how much did we have? And then we can divide that between how many people there were and see what everybody's fair share was. Make sense? So we're going to split this sandwich equally instead of unequally. That's what fair share is. Okay? So let's go ahead and find the fair share of this. All right? First, we're going to add the fractions together. So notice that we have 2 of them that are 1/4, 3 that are 1/3, and 1 that's 1/2. So let's go ahead and add these first. Because we have, I'll erase this up here, I'm going to add it up here, okay? So because we have 2 of them that are 1/4, I'm going to go ahead and do 1/4 plus 1/4, okay? And when I get 1/4 plus 1/4, because there's 2 of them, I get 2/4. And 2/4 is the same as 1/2. That's half of a sandwich, half of a foot, I should say, half of a foot, right? Okay, so that's half of a foot. Now let's do the 1/3, okay? The 1/3. So I'm going to remove this, pretend that title's still there. I'm just going to move it out of the way, but we still have to have this titled. All right, so I'm going to put over here, I'm going to go 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. There are 3 of them. And that equals 3/3, or 1 whole foot. So far we have 1.5 feet of sandwich, don't we? And then we also have this half. Okay, so we don't want to forget that. So let's go ahead and do that 1/2. And that 1/2 is just by itself. So we add these 3 together, and what do we get? So here's 1 whole, and then these 2 halves also make a whole. So the amount of sandwich that there actually is 2 wholes, or 2 feet of sandwich, okay? In the book it says 1/2 plus 1 plus 1/2, or 2 whole. If sandwiches are a foot long each, then we have 2 sandwiches, don't we? We have 2 feet of sandwich, or 2 whole sandwiches. Okay, so that's how you do it. You're going to add each measurement together and find out how much there was total. Now, once we know how much there was total, let's figure out how much each person should get to make it equal and everybody gets their fair share. Okay, so how we do that is we just go ahead and take this 2, okay, and we're going to divide it by however many people there are, right? So if you look at how many people there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need to do 2 divided by 6 is what we need to do. One way to do it is 2 divided by 6, right? And if we simplify that, don't we get 1/3? So each person should get 1/3. And on the picture that we have in the book, if I erase this, you kind of see the color still, but let me erase that. In the book, it has a picture of 2 sandwiches. So we'd say we have 1 sandwich, 2 sandwich, right? There's 2 sandwiches. And if you split those 2 sandwiches 6 ways, okay, so you'd end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. So this is 2. And how much is each of these pieces? 1/3 each, right? So each person should get 1/3 of a sandwich. So in the book it says divide the total, and then it's got the chart. So each piece represents 1/3 of a sandwich. So if the sandwiches were divided equally, each person would have eaten 1/3 of a sandwich. Okay, so let me review what we just did. What we just did is we just put this information onto a line plot. We drew a line, we drew the amounts, we put an X for each person and what they had. When we were done with that, we went ahead and we added together all of the sandwiches people had and figured out how much they had total. And then we divided that by how many people there were to see what everyone's fair share would be. And if everyone got the same amount, they would each get a third of a sandwich. Okay, so that's what today is all about. So let's look at the guided practice. The guided practice is a different problem. So let me kind of get that set up here. And it says, make a line plot of the measurements in the table and then find the fair share. In this table, there aren't any thirds. I'll go ahead and just erase that just for confusion's sake, right? But there are some 1/4 and there are some 1/2. So let's go ahead and put this data onto this table, okay? So it's an amount of juice, and then we're gonna find the fair share. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's figure out the amount of juice. So somebody had 1/4, okay? And then someone else had 1/4. And then another 1/4. Then we had a half, another half, another half, then a 1/4, then a 1/2. And let me count that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And are there 8 squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. So I labeled that out correctly. So now I've got this labeled onto the chart, and of course we always label the chart, so don't forget that. We're going to call this amount of juice. That's just the right way to do this, is by labeling it, okay? Amount of juice in gallons. All right, so we're done with this part of it. So now we have to find the fair share. And that's pretty easy, actually, if you just logic it out, as I always say. So let's go ahead and logic this out. We have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, which you could say 1/4 times 4, or you could just add it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4/4. That's 1 whole gallon of juice. And then let's do the half. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you can see these two together would be 1 gallon. These two together would be another gallon, right? Because they're halves. So here's 1, 2. So that's 2 gallons. So these 2 gallons plus this gallon, because 4/4, equals 3 gallons. Right? 3 gallons total. And now let's take those 3 gallons and split it up evenly to find the fair share. So we need to split it up between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. Okay, so we're going to take 3 and divide it by 8. Now remember, fractions mean divide by, so we can just take that 3, divide it by 8. That fraction doesn't simplify, so the answer is 3/8 of a gallon goes to each person. That's the fair share. So we label all of this on here. We put the data onto the plot. We figure out the total, divide it by how many people there are to figure out everyone's fair share, and the fair share is 3/8. Okay? So go ahead and practice this. I think you can understand how to do it. Do the independent practice, and I'm going to put the answers to the independent practice right on the assignment today so that you can look at it and see if you plotted it out correctly, plotting it out, labeling it, and then figuring out the fair share. Have fun.